Fossils and early hominid behavior. Significant change during the Pliocene. The Pliocene begins 5 million years ago and goes to 2 million years ago. This is the prime time for early hominids. So let's look at the habitat, diet, tools, and social life. Significant change during the Pliocene, characterized by significant changes in the animal assemblages, geology, and weather. Higher sea levels over wide areas, but not necessarily colder than the Miocene, just drier. And this is highlighted in the film Becoming Human as they talk about climate change. Recent advances in the study of fossil pollens and research into ancient environments have allowed us to create models of habitats, ecology, and climate conditions in which these early hominids lived. Habitat. Afarensis shared an environment with zebras, giraffes, antelope, monkeys, and predator felines like leopards. It was a mixed savanna and woodlands area. The diet. Drawn from striations in the teeth, the pitting and smooth areas, it is determined that Australopithecines ate fruits and leaves, nuts and grains. Also, it is likely Afarensis took advantage of animal foods, insects, termites, bird eggs, small mammals, and reptiles, much like we see chimps and bonobos do today. Significant change during the Pliocene. Tools. There is no direct evidence for tools in early Australopithecines or Afarensis. However, comparative evidence, chimps and bonobos, would suggest tools are used to some degree, but stripping a branch of leaves and twigs to make a termite fishing wand would not preserve over millions of years. Social life. In Afarensis, sexual dimorphism in the body suggests high male competition. Either one male, several females, or multi-male, multi-female, the later being more prevalent today. At first, because of the dimorphism, it was thought, like gorillas, it was one male, several females, because that dimorphism is thought to be driven by competition for males. However, there is a lack of dimorphism in canine size, which is rare with body dimorphism. Because of one of the main fossil finds that has 13 individuals, they're a mixture of male, female adults with infants. There's tentative support for a multi-male, multi-female pattern as opposed to one male, several females. Steps in interpreting hominin evolutionary events. Selecting and surveying sites. Selecting would be in the library. It would be surveying environmental conditions back to 3 million years ago. Where would hominids live? You select an area, then you survey a site. Survey is made up of walking the surface and looking for clues, for fossils. Excavating sites and recovering fossil hominids. Once a survey is done and sites have been determined, that's when excavation starts and recovering fossil hominids. In the field, designating individual finds with specimen numbers for clear reference, then bringing it back to the lab for cleaning, preparing, studying, and a description. Comparing with other fossil materials. What time span? What chronological framework? What area? Geography are they from? Could they be the same species, different species? Comparing fossil variation with known ranges of variation is closely related groups of living primates and analyzing ancestral and derived characteristics. Assigning taxonomic names to fossil material. In any species, diversity is part of the key. If we were still in the classroom, I'd say we could line ourselves up around the classroom and we would have people over 6 foot, and we may even have people under 5 foot. This is all within the same species. So when you find fossil bones, and there's that much difference between the size of the individuals found, are they part of the same species, or are they two different species? That's very hard to determine with fossils. Explanations for evolution of bipedalism. Possible selective pressures that bipedalism benefited: the ability to carry objects, provisioning, food, carrying things back to the group, the ability for hunting, foraging patterns favoring upright reaching, and then carrying those objects back to the group as you reach for them, visual surveillance, long distance walking, face-to-face contact, which is very important because communication and cooperation is becoming more and more the method of adaptation. Freedom for hands to develop, hand-eye coordination, to be used as other things other than locomotion, as it used to be. Male provisioning and female infant carrying. Thermoregulation, the ability to cool by standing and having the wind blow off your skin. Energy for completing tasks. And efficient niche exploitation. Laetoli. The Laetoli footprints, dated between 3.5 and 3.7 million years ago. It's a 75-foot trail of fossilized hominin footprints that were found in an ancient volcanic bed. Again, we talked about this earlier. These footprints were made in fresh volcanic ash that later turned to stone in the ground. It is thought, because of the depth of these footprints, that in fact it had rained. And because it is volcanic ash, potassium argon dating can be used to get the date between 3.5 and 3.7 million years old. Piltdown Man hoax. In 1911, a skull was found that supported the idea the brain was the first evolutionary change that led to the human line. Because of course, we're so smart, that must have been what developed first. Of course, there's no cause and effect in that assumption. But this was early in the 1900s. It was a modern human cranium attached to a orangutan mandible. The purposeful hoax obviously boosted careers, but it wasn't uncovered until 1953. So for all those decades, people were looking for large-brained hominids, and gee, couldn't find any. All the small-brained hominids were classified as aberrant apes and set aside. The hoax blocked valid information that did not match the idea that the cranium size was the leading adaptation. And this is what happens when you operate on false assumptions. The idea was accepted in part because many felt that our intelligence was such an important aspect of humans that it was the initial difference. Of course, there was no reason, no cause and effect that explained the large brain. Now we are filling in those gaps as we realize bipedalism was one of the first changes. And the change in how these individuals exploited the niche drove brain size. Science is self-correcting. It has an aspect that eventually uncovered the hoax. It took a time for technology to catch up. Now we can look at cause and effect of how the intelligence of our line evolved and create hypotheses that can be considered. South African sites, Australopithecus africanus. The first Australopithecine, the missing link, or thought to be the missing link, between apes and humans was discovered at a quarry at Tongue in South Africa by Raymond Dart. A number of discoveries accumulated but were ignored until it became clear that Australopithecines were not simply aberrant apes, but hominids, apes that were walking on two legs. One of the reasons that this took so long was the Piltdown Man hoax blocked the acceptance of these hominids. The acceptance of Australopithecines as hominids required revision of human evolutionary theory. The position of the foramen magnum, which indicated an erect posture, the fact that the deciduous canine teeth were quite small, and the shape and orientation of the forehead were all signs that this tongue child was a biped. Lobes of the cerebral cortex. If we look at the occipital lobe, it deals with vision, integrating visual information, color, shape, and distance. It brings in what you see to the brain. The temporal lobe helps understand where it's located. The temporal lobe helps recognize facial features. It is dealing with understanding, language, hearing, speech, memory, learning, a sensory speech area in this area called larynx. But it also gives facial recognition, as this face belongs to this person, this face belongs to that person. The parietal lobe. This deals with orientation in time and space, recognizing sensations, body position and objects positions, sense of time and space, reading and comprehension, area associated between functions of other lobes. And then the frontal lobe, planning ahead, reasoning, problem solving, morality. The frontal lobe allows you to do the right thing, to hold off doing what you're compelled to do the right thing. It is key to our personality, to learning social skills, recognizing and regulating emotion, motor function, and then the motor speech area is in the frontal lobe, called Broca's area. Now these things work in unison with the rest of the nervous system. That's why when you see someone, you see them, you recognize them, and you see where they are and what they mean to you. Those are all the areas of the brain. Seeing, occipital, who, temporal, where they are, parietal, and what they mean to you, the frontal lobe. It all works in unison at the same time to give us a cohesive picture of the world around us. I'm going to put this up on announcements. This is Robert Sapolsky, The Biology of Our Best and Worst Behaviors. This is a very good film. In it, he's describing the nervous system and how it works. Some things that I want you to be mindful of is that the nervous system does work on us and them. And of course, us and them is learned. Also, in hierarchy, status is very important. The nervous system will drive you to hold on to your status in this kind of a society. But status can be achieved in different ways. Now, we consider status when someone is aggressive, when they take from others and hold on to that for themselves. You could get status from being kind. As Sapolsky will point out in this video, that if you shot up 1,000 monks with testosterone, they would run around doing random acts of kindness. So if we understand these things about how we work, we can create us across the globe. We can create status by kindness, by social, being a part of the social cooperation. And I would say that that is in our future. Okay, thank you very much. Please watch this video as well as Becoming Human.